Welcome to the chaos sector. Let's make sure everyone is up to speed here, because I can confidently state, we have exonerated Brian Koberger of his murder charges. It's not that we have any incentive to do such, it's more about honest reporting and investigating. And with that, we only follow what makes sense. In the previous episode, our colleague pointed out another crucial element of the case. The knife sheath. Although it is reported to be discovered by first responding officers upon arrival, the Moscow police chief didn't claim he discovered a knife sheath, and that was a press conference. Keep that in mind. Before we get started, I find this photo quite hilarious. Are you kidding me, Ms. Grace? Is she reporting from the murder scene? Live? So dedicated to finding answers, are you? I think it's more about boosting ratings, but who am I to judge? I want to go back to the path to the home. I find that interesting. And also, the setting that night. As we've all observed, several college students had been stopped that night for drinking. This was approximately around 3 a.m., and, where they were sighted, was approximately a block over from the victim's home. There was a party at the frat house, which Chapin and Kernodle had attended. They arrived back at home around 2 a.m. A few details, I'll touch on that later on. But let's focus on this travel, and where would the alleged killer in Koberger physically travel to the home? We've examined the path from Pullman to Moscow in the previous series, and even the path directly to the home. But there is an area that has been blocked off on Google Maps, and that would be Queen Road. I've tried exploring on Street View, and it has been restricted. I'll touch on that later, which is actually connected to this current issue. For Koberger to physically get to that home, he wouldn't continue on King Road, because that becomes a dead end. And although the address of the victim's home is on King Road, in a vehicle, you would have to turn on Queen Road to reach the home. Why is this important? Because if you examine that area, there is not much, quote, leisure space to park in. Meaning, your vehicle is going somewhere, either it be parked on the side of the road, or into a parking lot. It is irrational for Koberger to literally park in front of the home, as you examine, because he would have to walk a short distance, up a small hill, approaching the home. If some would suggest he parked on King Road, and took the path that's displayed with the dotted lines, this is even more suspicious in the neighborhood. This is that area of the dead end, can't go walking all in people's backyards, right? So logic suggests, he exits King Road, to Queen Road, and would circle the home, to the other side. We mentioned this prior as well, the coverage Queen Road provides for the suspect, due to not being directly spotted approaching the home, from the front. Rather, circling the home, entering the backyard, and then reaching the very sliding doors on the second floor. Quite calculated, but I think it's more so about knowing the layout of the home. It's possible he obtained the layout, and how to approach the very same way we did, through Google Maps. All he needs is the address, right? But since we've exposed all of the inconsistencies so far, I reckon there is someone still out there. Valenta Drive was also important in our previous series, because it technically encapsulates the surrounding area. And let's examine Valenta Drive, from a street view. Want to share this, because I also had a theory that just popped in my head. In this neighborhood, and throughout of course, many roads merge. Taylor Avenue ends, and turns into Valenta Drive. If we head westbound, on Valenta, there is a quote, peekaboo spot, through bushes, that gives us a view of the victim's home. Yes, that is the home. From this position, you can literally view the entire left side, from this angle, of that home, which is where the sliding doors are located. I thought this was very interesting, as it hasn't been pointed out before. But here's the thing, if this is visible, and quite strategical in how to execute the murders, from this vantage point, what do you think it looks like from Queen Road, which is even closer? Well, we can't see this angle of the home on Queen Road, because they have restricted access down that road. Initially, you could travel down Queen Road, but of course you couldn't explore throughout the bushy regions near the backyard of the victim's home. As you see in satellite view, I actually dragged the marker to the location marked. This means that area is in fact explorable. But in street view of Queen Road, this area cannot be explored. You see the tab at the bottom of the map that has the street view feature? This is supposed to view that very area that's marked, which is 500 through 718 Queen Road. Those are addresses, but more importantly, there is a road there. I think the reason that area had become restricted is because that path, which makes more sense to travel, would compromise the narrative of it being Koberger. The reason I say this is because that path indicates that someone, or a group of individuals, knew exactly how to approach. Now in the virtual tour of that area, we can at least get closer to Queen Road, to see the path heading around the victim's home. But in Google Maps, this area is not even accessible. The reason being? Because the map would have to, well, map out the roads in the vicinity. Queen Road is a road, of course, so Google Maps would have to process that entire region for exploration. As you see, Queen Road wraps around the home. It actually becomes a dead end, but I say wraps around, because the suspect would park the vehicle on Queen Road, get out, and come from the backyard, to the sliding doors, which makes it more difficult to be spotted. Especially by some alleged surveillance cameras, right? But even though we have this photo, it doesn't satisfy me enough, because if Queen Road were accessible in Google Maps, we could physically examine up close the area in which the killers were upon arrival. If anyone has attempted to explore Queen Road, you ran into this problem. But for those who haven't, let me show a small clip, where I am attempting to explore Queen Road. As you observe, you can't even enter Queen Road anymore. Initially you could. In addition, a specific path, from Taylor Avenue to Valenta Drive, has a commute through King Road, then Queen Road. But the directions conflict with themselves, because once I reach King Road, following the steps, it does not have images of Queen Road, although that's the directions given through Street View. Let's examine. Do you see? It notifies me to make a U-turn, but it's not because the path doesn't exist. Negative, it's because the route has restricted usage, or private, roads. This was not the case early on in the investigation, which you would think, the road would be restricted or private, days after a massacre took place in that neighborhood. But almost a year later, they have restricted access to Queen Road? At first, you could travel down Queen Road, but the victim's home was blurred out, the same way it is now. The difference, though, is they have prevented anyone from traveling down the road entirely now. If you blurred out the home, isn't that enough restriction? That area is off limits for observing and searching around, right? It's because the path of the killer, or killers, was in fact down Queen Road, and around to the back. And that back area does have a parking lot. That parking lot is for the apartments across from the victim's home. This area needs to be explored, from my investigative perspective. In fact, there are no photos of that area altogether, from detectives. Why? Let's be honest here, when such a crime happens, and you have close quarters, such as grassy regions, and bushes, these areas need to be inspected, investigated, for potential evidence, forensics, anything that can give detectives a lead on a suspect. What if the killer threw the knife somewhere in that parking lot? What if they stashed the knife in the bushes? What if they chucked a pair of gloves back there? Or dropped an item? You wouldn't know, because you never considered it a possible extension of the crime scene. I'm here to tell you, it's possible there is evidence back there. Well, there was possible evidence back there, because if there was, it's definitely gone now. And this may be why they have blocked that entire road off, to prevent from exploring that area. If you examine the satellite view, do you see that large area of bushes and grass? A quick place to get rid of a weapon, which could never be found. Just wanted to point that out. I'll scan the area from the virtual tour, to show exactly where you could explore. This is access to Queen Road, through the virtual tour. where those photos were, was initially explorable in Google Maps Street View. I remember, because I felt the team needed to collect it for potential evidence at the time. We even had an episode, explaining how two killers traveled through that backyard, to discreetly enter the home. If I'm not mistaken, it was part 13 of the Idaho murders. I will leave a link to it for those who want to view it. Now we didn't dig deep into investigating the crime scene, but I think it's time to virtually examine the home. But to magnify the importance of that area on Queen Road, here is a photo taken, which is literally on the property, near the patio. It's almost as if the detectives looked into this area as a possible path into the home. And that would seem to be the most logical path. The claim that Koberger was spotted in surveillance, near the home, hasn't been confirmed. We know there is a security camera next door, so we assume it captured Koberger, right? The security camera, though, is facing King Road, not Queen Road. Why is this important? Because there would be no physical footage of Koberger at the home specifically. You may see a white vehicle pass by, or even drive down Queen Road, but what are the chances that the Hyundai Elantra could be visibly detected? There are several white cars in that neighborhood. Also, we mentioned this in a previous episode as well. One of the neighbors being interviewed by the authorities appeared quite nervous. She knows something, and from her body language, indicates to me that she will not disclose what she knows to the authorities. There are a few possibilities here, which I will explore. Based on her distant body language from the officer, I believe she either heard something, saw something, or even knew what, when, where, why, and how, something. She's giving off a defensive energy to me. I don't think she was involved in any way, but clearly she is a witness. Wanted to bring that back to the audience's attention, as many have forgotten some of these key observations. Well, I think it's time to enter into the home. Are you guys ready? It will take some time though. Until next time, this is the Chaos Sector.